everyone, and welcome to Superhero Speak Interview Edition. I'm your host, Dave, and first off, Don is off this week on assignment, as it were. But I have a great guest with me tonight. It is C.E. Massari, author of the upcoming Mafia versus KLAN. How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad. It's been a long couple of weeks, but I can't complain too much. Life is good.
Well, that's good to hear. So I guess we'll get right into it, and I always like to ask, what is the elevator pitch for Mafia versus KLAN?
Yeah, so we actually went. It was originally I was going to call it the Mafia or Mafia versus the Clan. Once it got picked up by SourcePoint, we had a little bit of a change. So it's going to be actually, yeah, it is. Yeah, the Mafia versus the Clan. Sorry, I can't even know my own my own book title. That got changed. So essentially, the elevator pitch is John Wick meets The Godfather. It's based on and inspired by some true life events, particularly that of my Italian American grandfather, some experiences he had in Virginia while my dad was still alive, growing up in the South, where the actual Klan kind of boycotted his restaurant that he owned. He got
Mm,
harassed by them. He had some African American cooks that he would drive back and forth from work. He would eat lunch with.
hmm
He would just kind of hang out with. And you can imagine like the '60s in Virginia, you know,
yeah.
the an immigrant essentially hanging out with, his help wasn't really looked
hmm
upon super fondly. And there were some other events in that. I know there's one in particular. My dad says he can't remember a whole lot. He was a little younger, so there were not big things that stuck out in his mind. But he said there was one where he just kind of described the guy as like the kind of what you would caricature as like a big country guy coming in and
Okay.
telling my grandfather kind of to get out of town, and my grandfather basically telling him to screw off in so many words. That's kind of the pitch, and I actually built it around it. I combined it, so that's the true story behind the book is taking the inspiration of my Italian American grandfather's experience with the Klan, um, which was inspired by a military channel episode titled Mafia vs. Klan. So that's another reason why the name kind of had to get changed a little bit, was
Okay.
because, you don't want to get copyright. But
No,
I
no.
then my dad watched the episode. He's like, "Oh, this is a really good idea for a comic or book." I just been getting started. The Superhero Speak some years back, probably like close to 10 years ago now, um, did a review of my book, The Six Swords. I was on Kickstarter. Haven't
hmm
really. I've been trying to do stuff since. The industry is difficult. Things are difficult, but you can
Yeah.
see how long I've been working at this. But he mentioned it, so I watched the episode. I was like, "Oh, this is a really cool idea. This is awesome." So it took me some time. I'm not big on the Italian American caricature of like Italian and mafia.
Yeah.
I honestly wanted to stay away from it. However, it's a really cool idea. Everyone can get behind it. It's just one of those fun like Godzilla versus King Kong kind of things where it's like two forces kind of colliding. One you can easily just put in the character category of evil bad, and the other one's
hmm
a little more in that gray zone. I mean, if you went to Italy, they have a much different opinion on the mob there.
Right.
Uh, but kind of that playing around creatively, and then the real crux of the story, which is also based in true events, but has nothing to do with the mob. My grandfather was not in the mob. I have to put that as an asterisk. This isn't again inspired by based on true events. His sister was killed. She was murdered in front of him when he was 10 years old. Um, Growing up, we always knew that he had a sister and she was killed. He didn't talk about it. There was very little mention or information.
hmm
I happened to be playing around doing a little bit of genealogy research. I was on ancestry.com, and because it scrubs information just automatically, when I'm
Right.
putting together the pieces, it scrubs something on my great aunt. Now, my father, my aunt, no one ever knew her name. This them discovered her name, Augustina. So, oh
Huh.
wow, here's the death certificate. Here's the actual police report shot in the back. It's like, oh, my grandfather was telling the truth. There's some truth to this because you hear family stories, and you're always like,
Right. Oh, yeah.
how much is a tall tale? Well, this led me down like a few-year rabbit hole. I ended up finding out that Augustina Massari's death was a really big event in South Philly at the time. Like it was covered by newspapers statewide in Pennsylvania, up
hmm
until the point where the killer was released. So this was a big thing, and my grandfather never spoke about it. The only reason my father and my aunts knew about it was because my grandmother had kind of mentioned it in passing, and I have to ask him like what those passing events are, but it wasn't very often. I ended up reaching out to my great uncle's family, which would have been my grandfather's brother, who also witnessed
Right.
it. My uncle Joe, he never mentioned it either. They knew he had a sister and he was murdered. So essentially, my grandfather and his brother, the only thing that was ever mentioned was that she was murdered. And it turned out to be like this giant event. She was shot in the back at the kitchen in the family's kitchen. My grandfather was 10 years old, witnessed her dying, or witnessed her being shot. He
Hmm.
was working, I believe it was selling newspapers. 10 years old, Great Depression,
Yeah.
immigrant family. Mother spoke no English. Chased after the killer with a butcher knife into the streets. Didn't catch him. Raised the ruckus. They ended up having essentially a lynch mob go after this guy. They were pelting
Wow.
police cars once they found him. They were trying to break in to kill this guy. Looking back on it and looking at some of the newspaper information, I think the guy was legitimately schizophrenic, bipolar, manic, something like that. He was a man in his mid 40s,
Hmm.
didn't seem to be able to hold a job. It looked like my grandmother, because my great grandfather had died, my great grandmother was housing him as a tenant. So he was just kind of sitting in the house paying rent.
Okay.
Obviously, again, Great Depression, you need money, those kinds of things.
Right.
So
Right.
she was renting out a room in the house. He
Yeah.
had apparently hit one of the kids, according to the newspaper. And that's when my grandmother said, You're done, you're out." They saw him at church. He tried to talk to my great aunt. She ignored him. That's supposedly, according to him, that's what prompted him to act like this. But he's a mid 40-year-old man, and he's talking about loving my great aunt, how beautiful
Mm.
she is. So there's like this really weirdness of this
Right.
middle-aged man hitting on a 16-year-old girl, and he lived there for at least a decade. So I can only imagine potential
Wow.
creepiness and some elements that go into it.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, Augustina's death in without unfortunately I'm kind of spoiling like turning point of the book. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
that's the death of Augustina in this book is the crux of what sets the character in the Mafia book, Mario, on kind of his John Wick-esque, you know, revenge story. And the revenge story is a classic revenge story. One of the things I developed this, it went from a 5-page script that I did in the comic experience intro to writing class.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so great class, love
Yep.
Andy.
Yep.
Did the 5-pager in like 2018, 2020. I really couldn't get past. It took me a few years to get past like how do I build this out? How do I make this?
Okay.
I was able
Yeah.
to put again. I added in these different elements, and then it took a few years even after I built like the basic crux of the story to even then get the real theme behind it. I'm not big on I'm going to steal Tolkienism here, but I'm not big on essentially what does he call it, like the analogy thing where you're like what he critiqued C.S. Lewis on, like you're
Right.
taking an idea and you're like throwing it in the face, and even though they're friends, he just wasn't a fan of it. Allegory, not analogy,
A-
allegory. So I'm not big
allegory.
on
Yes.
allegory, but I was able to weave in kind of some forgiveness and selling your soul and some more theological elements into how the character of Mario progresses. So throughout the book,
Oh,
you
cool.
know, he's Italian American, so he's big Catholic. He's
Yeah.
in the United States, it's prohibition, the KKK. So you have the Protestant Catholic thing going back and forth, cultural, whatever.
Right.
So I'm trying to weave in theological elements of he loses his in the book his daughter. He
Hmm.
can't turn to the police. They seem corrupt. He has to go to the dark side. He has to make a deal with the devil, and then kind of the feelings and the elements of what pushes a human being to essentially give up all of it. Now, he never necessarily or abruptly says, "Oh, I lose my faith in it." It's more like an acknowledgement that I'm willing to pay the price of going to hell to get my revenge in the physical
Right.
world.
Right.
So that
Wow.
that is not an
That's
elevator pitch. That's like a 10-minute long spiel. But the elevator pitch is John Wick meets The Godfather.
yes. Oh, wow. That's a fascinating story. I, I love it too. I, I'm chuckling a little bit because um this is the second or third date with my wife. We went to see the whole nine yards. You've seen it with are Billy
Yeah,
Crystal and
yeah, yeah,
Robert De
yeah,
Niro. He's
yeah,
a mob boss who's losing his edge, And that movie starts off with them raiding a mob house, right, in New York. And my girlfriend at the time turns to me and goes, "Oh, there's a picture of that house in my hallway at home." And here, yeah, it was a real house. My late father-in-law's his father, they would have meetings at this house all the time,
Wow.
and there's a picture of him playing outside of this house. My father-in-law is a little kid, um, and yeah, so it's like it. I'm getting what I'm saying is like that doesn't surprise me because it was very prevalent, back then in the United
Yeah.
States. The Italians, they grouped together because like they all spoke the same language. They we call it a mafia, but they were looking at it as the term family. They were looking out for each other. So it grew into the crime and all of that, but it started as just them looking out for each other. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but it's an interesting story.
And interestingly enough, it kind of made some a little more sense later on. My grandfather did know some. So again, this is according to my dad, but funny enough, the research that I found out, most of the family stories were, like I said, he said his sister had died and he fell asleep at the table. That's what the newspapers say. Like it was pretty legitimate. So my grandfather's telling stories. He doesn't seem to be like a big tall tale teller, so they seem
Hmm.
pretty accurate. Um, my dad was saying they knew Frankie Flowers. He's a big mobster in
Yeah.
Philadelphia, first
Hmm.
name basis. Apparently, I've got some cousins out in the South Jersey area, Penn, Penns Grove area. They apparently knew him as well. So they're also Massaris. So in some form or fashion, my family that came from Umbria, uh, in Norcia in Italy, they knew mobsters in the city on, as far as I know, no one was involved. Grandfather was, but they knew them on first name basis, like you're saying, that
Hmm.
the small, tight knit community. And
Yep.
that was one of the things that I questioned. Like when Augustine was killed, I'm like, I guess because I said I figured out later he was 10, so generally there's not going to be like a big mob pushback like there would have been later in life.
Right.
Like why he didn't do anything. But I did find out, and again, this is probably pretty accurate, that when the his sister's killer was being released, that somebody from the Eastern State Penitentiary had reached out to him directly and was basically like, "Are you going to do anything once he's released?" My assumption is it was probably like a friend or like somebody from his neighborhood or somebody knew him from the neighborhood was like,
Mhm.
"Hey man, the guy's getting out. Are you going to kill him? We can't have you do anything like that," because he was legitimately trying to murder this guy for years. My aunt says that he didn't do anything ultimately because he had a family at that time. He had kids. He
Yeah.
didn't want to risk that kind of stuff. But the Eastern State Penitentiary, which was interesting to find, they had a post on Facebook. Photo I never saw before. It was from a newspaper in the event. It's my grandfather's like 10 years old. His mom's breaking down crying. I don't think my uncle Joe's not in the picture. They're there with police, and they basically had to come back to the crime scene and identify the body. And someone from a newspaper had taken the picture, and I found it. The Eastern State Penitentiary had posted it on Facebook. I'm like, holy crap, that's my grandfather. Like that's my great
Yeah.
grandmother. And I got some research information from them too.
So, I mean, this is obviously a very personal story. It's your
Yeah,
family heritage. And as an Italian American, like there's obviously you even talked about this a little bit. There are a lot of stereotypes
yeah.
about Italians and the mafia and all of that stuff. So like how important of it was it to you to tell a story that didn't fall into those stereotypes? And was it difficult to write, or was it easy to write because it was your own story?
Easy to write because it was my own story. And at the end of the day, whether it was personal or not, just hearing again the title Mob vs. Clan, like that sounds fun. Like that just sounds like a monster movie flick. So it's pretty easy.
Right.
The crux for me for writing was weaving in those elements, making it personal, making it not over the top, but also having heart. Like I didn't want to
Hmm.
make it where it was just to shoot 'em up and it's over the top, where it's a little, excuse me, a little more pulpy,
Yeah.
but I also didn't want to take away that personal element. But even though John Wick is a lot like the first movie, like what pushed that movie was he lost his wife, his dog was killed, and it
Yeah.
was really, that's what pulled you in the beginning, and the rest was
Oh
the
yeah.
violence. This I tried to do the same, but weave in, like I said, a little more of the theological and philosophical elements without being preachy or over the top. Like, what does draw us as human beings? Like, what is our breaking point? You can go back to like the Batman Joker thing. Like, everyone is, this close to having that one bad day that pushes them over the edge. Kind of
Yes.
taking that element. As far as the mafia and the stereotype stuff, I did want to stay away from it. My friend used to make fun of me in college because I was like, I'm not watching the Jersey Show. They're a bunch of, idiots and
Yeah.
stereotypes and everything else. And he'd be like, but so I did try to stay away from that. But it's not glorifying. Like technically, the Godfather does not glorify the
Right. Yeah.
mobster lifestyle. However, there is still kind of that cool element to it. There's still like this is
Yeah.
the the rad element. In this, I'm still not painting them as this is a better life. It's more of like a necessary evil. And there's even a conversation between him and another character where it's basically like you chose this because you felt like you had another choice when you really did. I really don't have another choice. I tried to do everything right. I paid my bills. I went to church I went to mass. I went to the police. I did everything right, and my daughter's still dead, and no one's doing anything about it. I
Right.
have to make this deal with the devil in order to essentially get justice or vengeance for her. The mob element is avoiding, I think, the glorification simply because they are painted as this is a necessary evil in order to get my justice, and I'm accepting the price that I'm paying, where essentially I'm becoming a bad person, but I want to do it because I want to get her justice that is clearly not being done.
Right. And of course, you mentioned your father and talking about these
Yeah.
stories. Did you show him the book and what did he think?
Oh yeah, my we've had some interesting conversations about that. Oddly enough, my dad's a police officer or was a police officer.
Okay.
So that's the again interesting because I've had conversations with him and there were times that supposedly there was some connections to some more seedy elements of
Mm,
again the South Philly element, and
right.
my grandfather I think avoided a lot of those the way that my dad explains it in certain moments because he was trying to become a cop because of certain things. Again, not that my grandfather was ever going to become a made man, but there were certain people and certain things that he knew in the city
Right.
and was around at certain points and just ways that he avoided those out of respect for my dad or not getting caught up into certain things out of respect for my dad. My grandfather's a World War II veteran. He was in the Air Nat or the yeah, he was in the Army National Guard. He was a cook for years, so he avoided a lot of those pit holes. But I talked to my dad, and it actually was very emotional for him. One, because he never knew his great aunt's name or his aunt's name. He never knew his
Right.
aunt's name, and there was finally a name to this person, and he felt like there was this individual now in his life, kind of metaphysically, this individual
Right.
in his life that was there, that was suddenly there. And he said he went through some moments of really connecting with his dad mentally and understanding who he was. Because this guard my grandfather for the entirety of his life. Um, he
Mhm.
had nightmares. I was talking to my cousin, I think he's like 10, 12 years older than me. So
Okay.
my grandfather died when I was 10, 11, lung cancer. He
Okay.
was a lifetime smoker. He's poor choice in that respect.
Yeah.
Um, but my cousin got to spend more time with sleepovers with him. And he said he would always remember like when he would come out to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, he would kind of meander in the middle of the night to some other room for whatever reason. My grandfather would be awake, like just sitting in a chair, kind of staring or out of it.
Yeah.
My From my father, my grandmother would describe my grandfather as being crazy. Oh, he she was also Italian American and very much Italian American stereotype in a lot of ways. Oh, he's crazy. He's this. He's that. He screams in the middle of the night. He's waking up. He's this. He was having nightmares of seeing his
Yeah.
sister killed in front of him. I think my dad said at some point, probably like the 70s or 80s, he went to seek counseling or therapy in some way. And you got to think, no one's seeing
Wow.
counselors and therapists in the 70s or 80s because, oh, you're a
Yeah.
crazy person, let alone someone from, again, an immigrant background like that. And this
Yep.
because he was literally, my dad says, he had to have been in the red where with whatever those memories that were in his head were just replaying over and over again. So he had
Yep.
night terrors. My aunt who's now passed, she was getting divorced from her husband at the time. Apparently, the night terrors got really bad again because he kept picturing her husband murdering her, getting mad that they were getting divorced
Oh
and murdering
wow.
her. Like he legitimately, this is just something that carried him for the rest of his life. So for my dad, it made him understand his father a lot more. My grandfather didn't grow up with a father. He died when he was 2. He was working at a young age to help support his grandmother.
Right.
My great grandmother lived with my dad and my grandfather until she passed away. So she lived in the house. She even was as another person who clearly had some very big trauma. She lost her first child when he was 2. So
Mm.
there was would have been my great uncle Augustino. He died at 2. I believe, again, looking at just death records and stuff like that, that she was pregnant or near having my great aunt Augustina. And I think she gave Augustina the name Augustina because Augustino had died from heart failure at 2. So before she was
Right.
born, it is like a memory thing. So she lost a child, lost another child at 16. She's living in a country she doesn't understand the language, doesn't speak the language. Her husband
Right.
died. She's caring for 3 kids as an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, the big murder. Years later, their dog had died. My dad was telling me the story. Their dog had died, got hit by a car. He said he's never seen a human being break down over this. Again, everyone loves their pets, so I'm not dismissing
Right.
like
Right.
seeing
Right.
your
Yeah.
pet die, but the amount of emotion where she just had like a true mental
Yeah.
breakdown seeing this dog die. He's like, I didn't think about it as a kid, and now as an adult hearing these things, like she you start lining these things up. It's like, holy crap, that's a rough life. Like that's tough. So for him, it kind of opened up some wounds. It made him better understand his dad, better understand my grandmom in a lot of ways, better understand his grandmother who he lived with. Her, he was like, oh, I just always saw her as my grandmom. She's my Italian American grandmom. She's kind of mean. She's just kind of there, this kind of other thing. Like everyone
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinks of certain grandparents as their way. You don't humanize them.
Right.
It humanized a lot of the elements of his family because of this, to understand dad, to understand his grandmom, these elements. So it was a big thing for him. And we've talked about it. I've got mixed feelings about doing the story because I'm like, in some ways, I think my grandfather would be proud of me. He'd be proud of me no matter what. Um,
Yeah.
not no matter what, but like you get what I'm saying. Like you're out
Yes.
there trying to be successful. He would be very happy for me. One, the fact that I'm this proud of my family and I would do something about this. However, on the flip side, I truly don't know how he would feel about me essentially taking this traumatic experience in his life and putting it in a story. So I do have mixed feelings. Like I can be honest about it. Like I've got mixed feelings. Like, is it really right to be profiting off of, this really big tragedy in my family?
True.
But at the same time, I also feel the second side, like I've given Augustine a new life. I had my son back in October. If he was going to be a girl, the middle name was going to be Augustina. Was a boy,
Mm.
so the middle name is Augustino. It's made me reconnect with my Italian American heritage in a completely new way, where I started to realize things of event. Oh, my grandmom's gone. We're losing this tradition. There's no of these connection points. I need to do
Yeah.
it for my kids. So overall, it's been a very enlightening thing for me and my family. And if I can, you know, essentially serve their memory. And yes, is it violent? Is it glorification of a terrible event in their life? Absolutely. So I do have those mixed feelings, but I also think if life is life and my grandfather's truly dead and up above and all that good stuff in the world,
Right.
that he would also be like, hey, my grandson's taking our story and telling it and bringing it back to
Right.
life in a more enlightened view. Now if he was on earth, he'd probably call me lots of different names at other points in time. I say that lovingly, because one of the few things that I do remember was he always called me Gabados, which is hard head. So that was the one. He was
Yeah.
trying to teach me Italian. I didn't get the time with him to remember all of it, and I also didn't pay attention in school like I should have to know as much as
Yeah.
I should. But the one thing I started, he always called me Gabados, hard head.
All right. So let's talk about a little bit about the elements of the book in the sense of I guess that my first question is uh you wrote the book, but now you're working with SourcePoint. Was the book completed before SourcePoint was going to
It's
distribute it,
being
or
completed. So it's an interesting story. So
okay?
I've known So what got me in, I always wanted to write comics, but I never knew how. So what I ended
Okay.
up doing in college is I was a philosophy and religious major, all those philosophy factories in the world. And then I was
Yes.
also a journalism major. Now I
Okay.
started journalism in the mixed martial arts space. Been doing martial arts all my life. Wanted to be a professional fighter. Did all this stuff, and I was interviewing fighters. I was doing this stuff, and then I'm like, well, really, what I wanted to do with an MMA career was really just piggyback into comics. Like my idea, Mayhem Miller, like a lot of big names at the time were getting
Yeah.
their entertainment career off of building it through the sport. And I
Right.
was like,
Right.
well, I'm not going to be able to do that. Why don't I just figure out how to do it? So I started doing comics journalism. I wrote for Ain't It Cool News. I did
Okay.
comics first when they existed. I did Screen Rant, I think, for like an article or two, Monkeys
Mm-hmm.
Fighting Robots. So I was going out to conventions and doing interviews and all these different things to
Yeah.
figure out, hey, how do you do these things? Well, my first New York Comic Con, I met Dirk Manning. I went to like a writers creating workshop.
Yeah.
Dirk was the person. I'm like, oh, that's I like this book. I'm gonna go talk to this guy. So I ended up going to the table with him or his table to go buy his book. And I had no intention of being there for more than 5 seconds, buying his right or wrong book and bouncing. That was it. And I tell him this all the time. Well, I sat
Mm-hmm.
there and no, he asked me a question. He's like, oh, hey, how you doing here? Oh, and I didn't want to say this, and I'm sure you know because you've been around long enough. I didn't
Yeah.
want to say that I was at the convention with Ain't It Cool News. That I was either going to get, oh, that's really cool, or oh, you're with them. And then I was like, I don't want to have that. So I was nervous to even say who I was with, but he
Uh-huh.
asked, and I was like, oh well, I'm here with Ain't It Cool News. Just I really like to write comics. I sat in your panel, and I wanted to buy your book, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, I used to write for Ain't It Cool News. I was like, oh wait, really? And then it started a conversation. It kept
Yeah.
going. I'm like, oh, I'm in school for journalism. Oh, I was in school for journalism too. Oh, I do martial arts. I do martial arts. And it was just this long thing. And that was the first time I met
Yep.
Dirk. And it literally, from now until then, he has been by far, without question, I can name mentors in my life for different things. He is the number one mentor I've had for comics, the business end. We don't really we've had some moments talking creatively. We've had some talks. I've done like for his Kickstarters. I've done script reviews and stuff like that. But generally speaking, he has 100% guided me on how I should act in comics. How the business works, all these different things. And it was funny. I met the guys at Source Point prior to them kind of taking time off. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and learned. I met a lot of them. I met Josh. I met Stan. I met all those guys
Yeah.
when I'm doing the Six Swords stuff. I actually pitched Six Swords to them. They weren't interested at the time. Wasn't right. It happens. You're going to get rejections. So I
Right.
always kept in touch with Dirk. Kept close with him. I went to New York Comic Con. This was the first time I was at Comic Con in like 5 or 6 years. It's 2 years ago now. Talked to him like, hey, what do I need to do to get a book at Source Point? Just because I like the guys, I like the stuff that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I felt a kingship with them. He's like, look, get me a finished book, and you pitch it to them, and I think it'll go well because my editor since 2020 now has been Drina, who does all the editing with Dirk's books. So
Right.
she knows what they're looking for, all those kind of things, and she's a very helpful marketer, and she's always telling them about the stuff that I've been doing. I had an agent for 2 or 3 years, Anissa Dorsey. Um, we didn't get anywhere with the book that I had. I had a children's book that I was doing with he does the art for Rick and Morty, Fred Stressing. So
Okay.
we had like a 6, 7, 8 page children's book. It really didn't get traction. Trying to get a pitch, it didn't work out. So I'm like, all right,
Right.
I'm gonna go back to the basics, which is Kickstarter. I'm gonna Kickstarter an issue, build until I can get a full graphic novel, and then I'm just gonna pitch stuff myself.
Right.
Things were not working out the way that I thought. So I had no plans on this going to Source Point for a while. I started putting up the images, the covers, building stuff on my Substack.
Right.
Dirk noticed. I get a message out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, when do you think you think that book's going to be ready by?" I was like, "I don't know. That depends on the question. Like, do you want me to pitch it? Do you want to see it?" And then
Right.
that kind of just prompted a big conversation. Got the whole pitch package to get everything else. He already kind of knew the story, like I said. Drina has helped me and guided me on how to be a professional with these things.
Mm-hmm.
So very helpful. And it sparked a conversation. He saw the art and everything coming through, and it was like, yeah, I want this by the end of the year kind of thing. So it's set to be, hopefully all the art and everything will be done by about July. We'll do any kind of touch-ups between August. It's good to go by September. Cover's done. We're just banging through 110 pages of artwork. We're close. We're getting. I can't remember how many are done, but we're getting there. So it was less traditional. It was more about the networking opportunities,
Yeah.
showing that I've been doing this for nearly 10 plus years. I've got a history with the Kickstarters. It's an idea that people like. I had Daniele Bolelli. Um, he runs a history podcast, and a few other things. He's been on Joe Rogan. I had reached out to him for a prior book that I was doing, and I just kind of stayed in touch. He did. He's an Italian who's in
Mm-hmm.
America. He's got some books and stuff like that. So I had him as like a consultant. Hey, is the language right? Is the culture right? I want to make sure that I'm doing
Yeah.
this correct. So that's kind of how that came about. It's just knowing Dirk, you know, being like, hey, I see what this is, and I think it's going to be right for this source point revamp. Get me all the stuff that I need for our basic, pitch stuff.
Yeah.
Put it in. He talked to Josh. They liked the idea, and they're like, we want this by this time. So Kickstarter September. I believe we're going to go out either on their Q1 2027 launch or their Q4 2026.
Okay. First off, I've known Dirk for a long time, and
Okay.
he is definitely there are how do I say this? There are so many people you meet when you go to conventions. You
Yeah.
obviously, if you've worked for Ain't Cool News, you know how it is. You go up to the tables, you talk to them. Hey, you got 5 minutes? You want to
Yeah.
do an interview? And um, there are those that they know the game.
Yeah.
They know how to present themselves. They're professional. They know how to talk to someone in an interview versus talking to a friend. And he is definitely one of those, like, he knows how it works.
Oh yeah.
It's tough. Some of the best artists that I love in the business, and I'm like, can I 5 minutes? Oh yeah, sure. And they're doodling the whole time you're trying to talk to them, and they're like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh, yeah. um so yeah, Dirk's great. In fact, actually, he reached out to me. I'm supposed to set up some interviews with him, with other source point people, and
Yeah. I
get him on
probably
the
got
show.
ahead on him on that. Generally, I've got a little bit of the bulldog in me where I got to bite on something. I'm like, if you guys are giving me this opportunity, I'm gonna go balls to the wall. And again, Dirk will tell you how did he make his bones by grinding. And I'm
Yep.
like that's what I'm gonna do. I already talk. Hey, who can I talk to? This and that. I know at some point they're gonna come to everyone who's doing like the source point relaunch and stuff like that
Yeah.
with media contacts. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of it. I like this means a lot to me. It means a lot that him and Josh, trusted me enough, like the idea, and took a chance on me. Dirk's been, like I said, if it wasn't for Dirk, for just bluntly, like I would not be in the position where I'm at
Yeah.
in my career right now because of his advice, his guidance. And like you're saying with the artist thing, it reminds me. So I work in cybersecurity and IT, and there's a certain personality trait where they are very, very good technically at what they do, but the personality end, I'm essentially like a middleman. So I work with
Yeah.
the execs of what we're doing, and I have to be the marketer, the way he explains stuff. It's kind of the same thing with artists. Like they're very, very good technically, or creative people on that creative side of the brain. The other side, not so much. I do feel the same thing with martial artists. I've got a gym that I co-own, and the idea behind it was martial artists are great at a whole number of things. They're not always good at the business side of things because they're like, oh, I
Yep.
just want to teach them. People will come. I build it, they will come. Doesn't work that way. You got to market. You got to talk. You got to grind.
There are people, Dirk is one of them, where successful people, and one of the things that successful people good are at remembering faces or names or
Yeah.
both. Every time I walk up to Dirk's table, he's like, puts his hand, hey Dave, how you doing? Puts his hand out. How are you guys doing? Having a good like right away. Um, And just that little bit, like, because these guys are dealing with
Yeah.
dozens, hundreds of people every year at cons, interviewing them and whatnot. And like, so that would be my advice to any creator out there. You do a con, try to remember people that are gonna at least help you out. We put him on here, he gets the word out, that kind of thing. So
I
yeah,
can tell you right now, I can do faces. I cannot do names. So I like I again
you know,
I teach
you go.
jujitsu. I teach kids classes. I am constantly telling the kids I apologize, and this is like after like a month or 2 months. I feel terrible. I'm like, names don't work a lot of times for me, so I have to repeat their names over and over and over again to make sure I get them. These are, like I said, clients and people that I know. If I saw them
I,
on the street, know exactly who they were, but names not so much.
I'm the same way, but you can always go, "Hey, bud, how you
Yeah,
doing?"
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Who's doing the art on the book?
So the art is being done by Martin Jimenez. He's
Okay,
done he's done a lot of indie stuff. He's had an image book. He does a lot for like the entertainer profile graphic novels. Like they'll do like
okay,
Eminem and here's this
right,
graphic
right,
novel,
right,
all
right.
those kind of things. So he's out of Argentina. I ended up
Hmm.
finding him oddly enough because I was looking for an artist for a completely different book. One of the
Hmm.
things that is just an unfortunate animal of comics is you might start with an artist. It does not mean that not 10 pages in, they're still going to be there. Life happens. Sometimes they just straight up ghost you, which I've had on some occasions, which is also kind of push back things that I've wanted to do because you spend money to pay them and then suddenly they are unfortunately gone. Which is why
Right.
if I give advice to people, make sure you have a contract because otherwise
Yeah.
you're kind of out of luck. Um, with Martin, I was looking for a different book. Artist, he had some family obligations. We had put together a pitch package for kind of a it's a supernatural book. It's rather than being the usual mature element, it's a supernatural book for teens in the kind of Hellboy team element of things just aimed at
Okay.
that audience. The artist, like
Right.
I said, we did a pitch package. He had a lot of family obligations to come up. I get it. That's understandable to me. When you go to me, that's that's a little different. But when you're honest, hey, I've got family stuff. I get it. I totally get that. So I was looking for a new artist to kind of come on long term. I put out the usual things: Facebook, Reddit, I think some other places. Martin emailed me. I saw his portfolio, and I was like, this this is what I've been looking for the Mafia book. Like just stylistically, image wise, like it's got a realism to it, but it still stays within the comic realm. And then I started the conversation. I was like, this is my guy.
So yeah, I mean the cover will be the artwork for the this episode, and uh you said pulp, like you wanted a pulp feel, and it
Yeah.
definitely has that. And I assume he did the cover, right? Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah, he did the
very,
cover. Yeah.
yeah, like very detailed, but still feels like a comic book, and it's really good.
Which
Yeah.
you'll get to see it, and I can send it to you if you want to throw it up for any of the episode stuff. He does
Okay.
some like I took again because it's historical and it is based in nonfiction and nonfiction elements.
Hmm.
One of the churches I used was the same church that my grandfather went to in Philadelphia. Same church. I've got my great aunt's kind of memorial card thing. It looked so near picture perfect. Like if you took a Google image, like it
Hmm.
looks like the way he detailed every little piece. Like he is a fantastic artist. He's a fantastic find. I can't be happier uh, that he popped up in my inbox. It's one of those things where this has to be, divine providence, because otherwise, like, I would have
Yeah.
never found this guy. It was absolutely perfect. I would like to have a long term career with him. I just working through this one. I've got to find the next right idea in my head that's going to fit that style because I think that's one of the things when you're doing comics that makes it a different medium. Um, and you kind of see it. I don't know how much you pay attention to like manga and like the One Piece, the Netflix stuff.
Yeah. I-
It doesn't. I like manga. I grew up on manga and anime. I cannot get behind the Netflix thing. It just does not fit. It's like this fits in this medium. It looks corny and hokey and weird live. comics is the same thing. You need to play to your strengths of your medium, and not every story, not every element works for comics. But when you find an artist like this style has a particular element, how do I play to the strengths of Martin in my next story? Like if I took his style and I was just like, hey, let's do a children's book. I'm sure Martin could kill it, but it's like it's not utilizing the clear strength of his artistic abilities to do
Right.
a children's book. Like it wouldn't make sense.
Right. So you said it's 110 pages.
Yes.
I'm assuming it's a complete story in the graphic novel.
Yep.
Do you have any? And you just said you're looking for the next great idea, but do you have anything else in the works that you can talk about?
Yeah. Yes. I definitely have stuff in the works. A lot of I have a decent amount of material that's just been sitting in the pipeline. So
Okay.
after the Six Swords, I I did not listen to my Dirk advice. So once again, I apologize, Dirk. And I went super deep into the Six Swords. I put all this money into 3 books. Now it was a group project, so there was other writers and stuff involved, and we kind of put our money together. But we did the 3 books, and then I paid for a fourth with art done. That's probably never going to see the light of day. So the fourth is done. It's like halfway colored and halfway lettered. The money on return was just not there. I tried to launch another book. This is where an artist ghosted me. 2 artists ghosted me in the same project.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to basic training, and I was trying to push out this book so much before I left. The artist started. I came back. He did a couple more pages. I've got like half a book done, and he's gone. And I mean, like he's ghosted everyone in the world. Like he's off the face of the map. So I obviously
Mm-hmm.
can't use it. So that's what prompted me because of life. I've got 6 kids now in total. At the time, I had I think 3. So I've got quite a few kids, full time job. In the I'm in the National Guard. I've got a lot going on. I can't handle the pace of what it takes to get stuff out there. So I was like, oh, I'll get an
Right.
agent. So in getting an agent, I worked with Fred, and we've got this pitch package for a children's book. So essentially, between the Six Swords and now, not a lot of production as far as art goes for the comics, but
Right.
I've got a book that is a children's story. It is based off of my oldest son. It was an idea that he had. I had a pea coat, and when it was flared up, he would call it my
Mm-hmm.
vampire jacket. So my wife was like, "Oh, that would be a
Okay.
cute idea for a children's book." So it's called My Dad or Is Dad a Vampire? It's basically it goes through a kid's version of seeing their parent as different monsters and kind of investigating it. Oh, he's wearing a pea coat.
Okay.
He looks like a Dracula. He
Right.
sleepwalks at night. Oh, he must be a zombie. And it goes through, and then it completes with the dad, and it does the same thing with the mom. Oh, her hair's kind of crazy. She must be Medusa. Like, and that's
Right.
that's the progression throughout. So that's hopefully the next thing that's going to launch. I'm kind of in between on even doing a Mafia vs. KLAN too. Mostly I got mixed feelings about it. The
Yeah.
story hasn't come to me yet. I have some rough ideas, and like I said, Martin has absolutely killed this first book, and I would love to do a second one purely for the fact that I have him as an artist. Why not do a second? I've got some ideas, but they haven't really solidified enough yet where I want to pursue it. This could also be a one and done, and it works perfectly fine. But I want to maximize the fact that he's a fantastic artist. He fits great for this book, and again, I sorry to say it, like Mafia vs. KLAN or Mafia vs. KKK, just a cool idea. And I can't toot my own horn of that because it's a military channel episode, at least
Yeah.
conceptually.
I love that idea for a kids book though. That does sound like fun. Having
Fred killed it.
yeah,
Fred, I've got a lot of pages for that one. Fred did a
cool.
fantastic job. The way that I would describe it to you artistically is think like the Nickelodeon, like the Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay, cool. Cool. Um that story of I got an artist and they did, 5 pages for me and then they ghosted me and disappeared. I've heard that so many times. In fact, that was one of JD's stories.
Yeah.
That's how JD and I met. He came on the
Oh, really?
show to promote a book that he was working on. I think it was Red Sunrise,
Okay.
um, uh, the comic at the time, and then he had all these other ideas. And then our one co-host left. We started looking for a co-host, and he's like, "Oh, I'd love to do it." And he came on, but Yeah, I asked him one time, what happened to that book you're working on? He's like, the artist worked on it and he disappeared. So that's when he started writing novels, because it's like, it's just me and I don't have to worry about an artist. But um, his heart wasn't in comics. Like I can tell that, like you are, because you, even the fact that you just said, One Piece is a manga and it works a certain way as a manga, and you can do an anime with it, but once you try to do live action, it doesn't work. And like, so you understand it's a different art form and it works. And yeah.
Love to utilize the mediums, and I love comics. I'm actually, funny enough, I'm trying to write a novel, and it was something that was originally something I wanted to do as a comic, but
Hmm.
thinking about money and time, I'm like, how do I know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write it as a novel. Maybe do it like a crowdfunding thing for it. Maybe it'll get pitched, but then I want to reverse it and put it back and do the script as a comic, only for it to get momentum. Now, whether that works or not, I don't know. I don't like writing novels. It's really tedious. As much as I love the Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien-esque of details,
Yeah.
it's it's not as fun. Like, I like kind of a little more of the conversational and lead element that you get in comics.
Yeah.
My new mantra, my new description of comics is it's a lot like football. Like, as the writer, you're the quarterback and you're directing play in the script. Your skill players are going to be your colorist, your letterer, ink penciler,
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah.
And once you give the ball to them, it's then their job to read the play and do their own thing.
Yeah.
This is a darkism. Don't make your artist your artist an art monkey, which I try to avoid. I will give. This is. I'm going to try to leave this as open as I can without being like the Stan Lee, like just
Right.
draw
Right.
a waterfall and a superhero, and then you get the great Kirby-esque stuff that comes from that, without going to the other extreme, which is like the Alan Moore, like it has to
Yeah.
be this degree from this degree, and like, here, I'm giving you the ball as the skill player. This is the direction I want you to go. This is the play, but you do you once you get the ball within reason.
Yeah. There's quite a few writers that I like to do full scripts where they describe everything. And I have to imagine, if you're an artist, you don't like working for
No,
those writers. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's got to be a happy medium. I mean, God, I've heard stories that, like, Stan just said, "Here's the idea." They drew it, and then he went back in and added the word bubbles, and then had no idea. The artist, no one had any idea what was going on until it was
yeah,
done.
and I
So
don't know how that happened, but obviously it was successful at the time.
yeah,
But it's playing to the medium. Like, there are things that work in novels that are not going to work in comics, and vice versa. Sometimes you can mash them. Sometimes
yeah,
things they do kind of cross over that have enough of a story element that work. But it goes back to like the people who are wanting to get into movies, and so they come to comics. Comics are not movies. There's a certain way that you talk. I know he's got like mixed uh, in certain circles, like Aubrey Sitterson, he's got like mixed
hmm,
kind of bag of people. But as far as his
yeah,
approach and his philosophy to comics, like, I'll follow it. I really like it because he very much tries to play into the medium. What works for this
yes,
medium? How can I make it work? It is an art form that works in a certain way. It's like a sport. Like, you can be a successful rugby player, but it doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the NFL or vice versa. Does it
right,
happen? Absolutely. But statistically speaking, it you can't always square that peg.
right, right. Yeah, not everyone's Bo Jackson.
No, no, that's, yeah, yeah.
Am I showing my age with that reference? I don't know.
Proper, yeah, yeah. Well, you can say Michael Jordan too, but even Michael Jordan did
Yeah,
not do as well, and
not in
and
baseball. No.
yeah,
Um. So, true. We're almost at 50 minutes, and I try to keep
yeah. I
these
talk too
two
much.
half
Sorry.
hour to an hour. So, um, a couple quick questions. Then, I guess you said this a little bit, but and you obviously went through a roundabout way, and it took you a while to get where you are now. So, if you met someone new that said, "Oh, I want to break into comics," what's one piece of advice you would give them?
This is funny. I'm only going to say this because that used to be the thing that I used to ask everyone else. So it's funny that now the question comes to me. So a little bit of first full circle moment. I've quote unquote made it. But uh, so if I had any advice, honestly, it would be some of the stuff that I made mistakes on, which is one, do the 5-pager, do the analogy first. It's not going to be as fun and it's not going to be as rewarding, but you'll get out of those early kind of development issues of how do you actually write, what's going to fit in a word bubble. Like I know they say 25 word count for certain
Hmm.
bubbles and how much dialogue. Just figure out how the medium works. It's like if you were a filmmaker, like they're going to be crap, but do like the 5 minute, thing on your phone of this looks terrible just to figure it out. Do the
Right.
5-pager, do the single script. Again, I am very much, and this is frustrating because I am not an artist. I like the long stories. That was something that's been really hard for me to get away from. Is I grew up on manga. I did read comics, but manga was a big thing.
Yeah.
And they're long form. Well, I'm also not an artist to be able to produce that. I have to pay the artist to create it. So if you're a writer on the writing side, you're going to have to pay an artist, and you're going to want your art to look pretty good because I think it might have been Chuck Dixon who you had on a week or two ago who said it, who was like, people come for the art, they stay for the story, which would be your writing. So you need
Yes.
someone decent enough who's going to, because we're visual people. You need someone decent enough on the artwork to bring them in. But to get a decent artist, it's going to cost you a little bit of change. So don't go crazy. Do the one issue on Kickstarter. See how it does. That's the
Yeah.
artistic side. The business side of thing is understand it as a business, and you need to know your strengths and weaknesses. If you are
Yeah.
that super technical person who is not maybe the most outgoing, do the wrestling thing. Get your manager. Get someone who is going to be mouthy for you at a table,
Yeah.
whether it's a spouse or a friend who can sell your stuff, or just do it online. Find a way to kind of utilize your strength. For anyone who pays attention to like military or military related stuff, there's a good thing from Jocko Willing's Extreme Ownership book where he's basically like, I had a guy who was very, very good and I needed him to lead. Problem was he was so quiet, he just couldn't get his commands out to his people. So what did he
Yeah.
do? He got the loudest guy on the team to give his directions to him to then spout out to the rest of the team in
Yeah.
as gunfire's going on, the explosions, and you're doing the training to get his message across. So if you understand your strengths and your weaknesses, then you can kind of play around to make it work. So if I funnel that all into like one kind of concise stream, do the 5-pagers in anthologies. They're not going to make you any money back. You're 100% investing in your career, learning how to do it, and now you got a nice little single or book or two that you can bring to a convention and show, hey, I did this thing. Then build to a single issue Kickstarter, see how it does. Leave yourself the opportunity to build upon that story. Should the single issue be great, maybe you do a follow up, then a
Right.
third, and then a fourth. You can even follow the Dirk Manning way of Nightmare World. You do these single issue things, and you have your own anthology, and you build. Really, it's about stacking wins, and knowing that in the
Yeah.
process you're going to get a lot of losses because artists do ghost you. It's unfortunate, and you're going to be out of money. Comics is very much throwing money in a fire pit and watching it burn, and hoping at some point you've thrown
Yeah.
enough money in there that the fire stops and it just piles up to be money.
That is so true. Um, oh God, people who don't know people that work in the industry don't understand
It's
those
terrible.
aspects of, yeah. Um, and so I know you said it's still being worked on. Do you have do you have like in your mind, do you have a date that you're set on to like get this completed and
Oh
get it
yeah,
out there?
so we are launching the Kickstarter in September. So uh,
Okay.
this is something I did work with Dirk and SourcePoint on as far as the timing. I originally wanted it to be kickstarted in October for Italian American Heritage Month. September is a better Kickstarter month. And again, Dirk was like, I want this out by the end of the year. And I don't mean that like in a negative way. Like he likes
Yeah.
the idea, he likes the story, he likes everything that's there. Um, he thinks it could be a something helpful, or maybe helpful is the wrong term, but something that source source point can definitely push from the title alone, just
Yeah.
timing wise of the world and stuff like that, which I did not everything going on in the world, this was not timed to be any kind of,
Yeah.
political statement. It just happened to be something historical. I started this in 2017, 18. It's just lining up. So just timing of marketing, partially that was the change in name. We don't want pushback when you have Mafia versus KKK, like just trying to avoid certain things with there. But
Yes.
timing
Yes.
wise, September 15th, maybe 14th if I end up changing it, but September 15th launch on Kickstarter for the pre-sales, run into October so I can get my Italian American heritage kind of plug in there. Once that's done, that's our pre-sales of the book. Then it's going to go to the normal source point push out. Well, like I said, it's either going to be quarter 4 or quarter 1, depending on how
Okay.
things time out with the printing. But 100% launch in September for the pre-sales, and whether we fund or not, it's still going out. That this is being treated as definitely a pre-sale with all the good Kickstarter goodies that come with the pre-sale to get ahead of it.
Any plans to do any of the cons, or you're going to wait till the book is out?
Probably wait till the book is out. I've got a bunch of Six Swords stuff. I did end up doing a wrestling anthology, Kfabe. I did 2 stories for them. I would like to wait until the book's out. I would like to be able to do some conventions with Source Point,
Yeah.
because I do own a business. I've got my full-time job. I've got my military duties. Plus, I've got a family.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot
A
going
big
on.
family.
Yeah, a big family. I want to be very surgical about what I do it and where.
Okay.
I did 2 years, 3 years of like hard conventions where I was going to like 8 or 10 a year.
Yeah.
When I have the book with the Six Swords, absolutely can't do that. So I'm hoping 2027 with Mafia vs. Clan, my Six Swords stuff. I go to like 4 conventions, hit it, and then I'll probably max out at 4 to 6 per year because I'm now working on my follow-up book. With Drina and then James Powell. So I've got, these are all stuff that I've worked on essentially the last 10-ish years. Scripts done. I've got the first script done for, I'm just going to say it, it's Enter the Dragon meets 300 based on some
Oh.
historical events, working with that with James, and then the Supernatural book I'm doing with Drina. So it's either going to be one of those depending on the scripting and if I can find the right artist between now and then. That will most likely be the one that launches next year. If they are not ready to go, then I'm moving forward with the children's book. That
Right.
would be the next one that I'll either launch a Kickstarter because it's more or less done. It's me trying to time out um, essentially how I can stack these and make the most momentum out of what I'm doing. Because this is coming back to the business end of things, the marketing end of things.
Yeah.
Yes, is it a creative business? But if my first title is this violent, historical, pulpy book, what is
Yeah.
the best next thing that is then going to continue to get me noticed, as well as not suddenly divert, which a children's book might. Like if I'm doing a children's book, that
Yeah.
might just be out of left field and not be able to capitalized on that momentum it should have.
It's
However, it might. I don't know, but I am trying to also be strategic in what comes next.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that kind of feels like something you would launch alongside something that's a follow-up to this.
Yeah.
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 I can see that. Um, and then where is the best place where people can find you online?
Instagram, Substack. I can't talk. Instagram,
Substack.
Substack. I stopped doing Twitter a while ago. I've tried to minimize my social media presence just so that I'm more attentive at home, and also because the internet's a terrible place, and I want to avoid getting my brain overly stimulated with everything. Technically,
Yeah.
I do have a Facebook page. It's C Massari. I posts generally go through. I don't interact with it a whole lot. It's just to kind of get it and use it. Instagram, I'm fairly active on.
Okay.
CE Massari there as well. And then my Substack is titled Master of None. It's
Yep.
I think it'll be C Massari, Master of None being that I'm involved in a lot of stuff, but I'm a master at none. I'm not a particularly great writer. I'm okay at it. I'm competent. Not a particularly great, martial artist. I'm okay. I'm competent at it. And then you can just go down the list of stuff that I'm involved in. Because it kind of changes. I did it over the summer. I did like a philosophical deep dive on South Park. Another one's on like some military stuff. I talk about creative stuff, so I'm kind of all over the place with it. But CE Massari on Facebook, Instagram, and then Master of None or CE Massari on Substack.
Cool. All right. And then the question that we normally end on is, how do you measure success?
It used to be hitting certain goal points and very, very particular notes. Now,
Mhm.
honestly, it's being able to do what I want, do what I want, how I want, and having the freedom to do it without much put. And again, within reason, not being like, oh, I can do whatever I want. No, I
Yeah.
want to be able the creative freedom of this is how I would like to see this. I don't really want to get hampered by it, but I would like a financial return on it. So as long as I'm making good money and I get my own little group following and I'm able to continue to fund the things that I want to do. So essentially that's really what I want, to be able to put
Yeah.
out the work that I want to do and produce and do it enough and have enough people following where it's financially allowing me to continue. Freedom, I think, would really be boiling it down to the one single word.
Cool. All right. Good answer. I like that. All right. Well, that's all we got for this episode. So thank you very much for joining me, CE. And to everyone watching, thanks for watching. Don't let your cape go out in the door. See you next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
If you haven't done so yet, subscribe. It really keeps this podcast alive. Smash the like button if you please. It gives us what we need. Maybe leave a comment or two. It's a really nice thing to do. And what are you waiting